Hello everybody and welcome to this new video of 3D design using FreeCAD. In this video we will go on learning how to design more complex objects in a very easy way. So let's go. First thing, as you know, we have to create a new document. Once we have the new document, we have to choose the workbench in which we will want to work. Usually for starting, we usually choose the part or part design workbench. So once we have the workbench, we can see all the objects that we can add to our 3D design. In this case, what we want to learn how to do is to create one object and then repeat it through the space. That is, we are making an array of objects. So let's choose, for example, the cylinder. Let's change the point of view. So we have here a cylinder. That's easy, we have done it before. Up to now, if we wanted to create other cylinders, for example 1, 2, 3 and 4 cylinders, what we would do? We would create another cylinder and then we can move it using the placement. For example, we can move through the x-axis to the 20mm position and we have the second cylinder. What if we wanted to do a third, fourth, fifth, even 20 cylinders? Doing it step by step in this way manually, it would consume a lot of time while it's not necessary. So let's see how we can do this same thing, that is repeat the cylinder through the space using a tool of FreeCAD. So let's remove this cylinder, and as I have told you, what we want to do is repeat this cylinder through the space. For that we have to choose another workbench, that is the ARC, that stands for Architecture Workbench. We are in the new workbench. As we can see that the icons have changed. That is, we have new tools to make new things. As some of the icons are hidden, we will move them, for example, here, because we will be using these new icons. So for repeating the object through the space, we have to choose this icon. You can see it on the screen. Take attention that if the FreeCAD version varies, because maybe there's a new version or you have an older version installed, the icons can slightly differ, but at the end the concept will be the same. So we choose the cylinder, which is the object we want to repeat through the space, and afterwards we choose the array icon. Now what has happened here? The cylinder is not anymore a cylinder but an array. Array is a set of objects located through the space in a repetitive way, so following a pattern. Let's see how to modify this pattern. If we go to the properties, here in the down part, remember we have view and data. So if we go to the data, we have here several values that we can modify. So the value we are interested in here is the array type and how we modify this array. So for the array type, we can choose two possibilities. We can choose ortho or polar. Let's start with ortho. Ortho means that we will repeat the object in the x, y and z axis, following a linear pattern, a Cartesian pattern. So we have the axis that sets us the surface in which we will repeat in. Don't worry too much about that. We have that the axis is the z. That means that this is the surface in which we will place in our object. So that's okay. Usually we won't change that, but if you want, you can experiment with that. Okay, we have the center, that's okay, but here is the important thing. The interval. Here, interval x means how many millimeters will be between each cylinder. Currently it's just 1 millimeter. Let's see what happens if I modify this number. For example, choosing 10 millimeters. Now I have the cylinders spaced by 10 millimeters. If we go to the interval y, here again we have the y-axis. If we choose 10, we have, you can see, now we have 10 here and 10 here. For seeing the difference, we can select another dimension, for example 20. Okay, so now we have 10 millimeters on the x-axis and 20 millimeters on the y-axis. So you would wonder, how can I make more cylinders? Now I only have 2 in this direction and by 2 in this direction. For that, we have here the number x, that is how many repetitions how many clones we want to make through the x-axis. For example, if we choose 4, we have here 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the number of repetitions through the y-axis, for example, 3. So we have 1, 2, 3. So that's very easy. It's a way to repeating an object through the space. So imagine that you want to make a design in which you have a building filled with columns. We have already the starting design. This could be the columns of a big building. So we would need only to make the floor and then to make the roof. Let's erase the whole design and let's do this exercise all from the beginning. I advise you that at this moment you stop the video, you try to make it on your own, and afterwards you see the solution. So we are solving this exercise. We want to make a building in which there is just the floor, a set of columns, and then the roof. Let's see how we can make it. So for beginning, we design the floor. The floor can be designed using a cube. We rename, remember that it's good to always rename the objects. This would be the floor, okay? And then let's change the dimension. We can make it that is 100 millimeters length, 100 millimeters width, and for example 2 millimeters high. Imagine that we would like to print this. So for printing this, it's important to have into account which the dimensions are. So we have here the floor of our building. Now we can make the columns, and for that we will apply the knowledge that we have learned up to now. So for making the columns, we introduce a cylinder. Okay, you see here the cylinder, and let's call it column. And let's change the dimension. We can make that the radius of the column is, for example, 5 millimeters, while the height is 90 millimeters. Okay, maybe a little bit smaller. This is too much. 15 millimeters. Okay, so perhaps we would want that the column is fully inside of the floor, so we can move it slightly. So on the position, and we are now refreshing everything we have seen in previous video. Let's move it. If the radius was 5, let's move it by 2.5 and 2.5, so that now maybe a little bit more. In fact, if the radius is 5, we can move it by 5. That's my mistake, 5 and 5. Okay, and apply all the changes. Okay, so we have here one column and we have the floor. What we want to do now is to make, for example, columns all through the perimeter. Okay, all through the perimeter of the floor we want to make the columns. For that, remember, we go to the arc workbench and choose the array pattern tool. So now we have the array, and what we want is to place, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 through the x-axis and another 5 here, so 2 on the y-axis. So for that, again, we go to the array type, ortho. That means the array type will be Cartesian, and the interval we should choose that so that they are separated through all that. If we have chosen before that this is 100 millimeters and we want to place 5, so we will choose the interval 20 millimeters. Now we have 20 millimeters, and we should say that the number in x is 5. Okay, and again on the y, if we want to make just 2, we select 100 millimeters and the number is 2. As this is outside, it should be a little bit smaller. Let's see, 90. Okay, here it is. Now it's placed just inside. So we have the floor and we have the columns, and we just want to make now the roof. And for that, again, that's easy to know. You know how to do it. We go back to the part design. We can just clone the floor. Okay, we select the floor and we choose duplicate selection and we rename it to be the ceiling, and we just have to move up, so move it through the Z axis. So we raise it, okay, and we have it on the position we want. Okay, so in this way we have already designed our columns building. Okay, so that's all for this video. I hope you have enjoyed. Remember, practice and learn how to do it. See you on the next video. Bye.